Big time banger at light heavyweight. We have Marretta. Thiago Santos taking on Aleksandar Rakic, a guy that represents Serbia and Austria, taking on the Brazilian. And for Thiago Santos, man, I can think back to this guy at 185 fighting jobbers, finishing them impressively. Sometimes losing to them impressively. Like, it was just kind of weird for Thiago Santos. He's kind of in no man's land. And then just like former foe Anthony Smith, he had a resurgence. And if you look at the 5 on in, 3 wins to 2 losses. He finishes Eric Anders. He finishes Jimmy Manuwa. He finishes Jan Blachowicz. And then he loses split decision to John Jones. And then he loses last time out against Glover Teixeira. He dropped Glover in the first. He dropped him again right until he got finished himself. And for Thiago Santos, it was a different game plan his last fight. Because what he did was he took his normal stance. And he did some of the things that he normally does. And I know he'll speak to, well, when he's going for a wheel kick, you usually see this out of him. But the thing that he did in that fight was he had a lot of feints with his hips. He did a lot of movement of the hips where he was trying to fake out Glover where, am I going to go to the legs? Am I going to go to the head? And in the end, he didn't. He boxed with him. And that's pretty much what Thiago Santos did in that fight. He did not throw a lot of kicks whatsoever against Glover Teixeira. Maybe it had to do with the wrestling. Probably had to do with the wrestling. But he didn't throw a lot of kicks. I'll talk more about those a little bit later on. For Rakic, his last time out was his first main event, but it wasn't any normal main event. It was a 3-round main event against Anthony Smith where, well, he dominated him pillar to post. He absolutely out-wrestled him. He outstruck him for the brief period that it was on the feet. And if you look at his 5 on in, 4-1, a win over Ledet, a win over Devin Clark where he finished him, a win over Jimmy Manuwa, and then the split decision loss to Volkan Oezdemir that, well, really he should have won. So you can consider Rakic as 5-0 coming in. For Santos, maybe you think he's 4-1 coming in and he actually did beat John Jones. I'm not going to give you a strong argument either way. I think he's an absolute warhorse for going through that fight with 2 bad knees, and they were caused in that fight. So I think. The weird thing for Santos, though, we talked about it in the Teixeira fight. Everybody called us crazy for picking Teixeira. I did the whole...
No. Sorry, I get to pat myself on the back.
You picked the round.
And the method.
All right. But we both picked Glover to win. The point is, we did the whole social media deep dive. Santos is coming in off of 2 bad knees. You didn't see a lot of kicks in any of the videos. You saw Capoeira, but there were 2 videos just from different angles that he posted on Instagram where you thought, oh, okay, well, maybe the knees are all right. But the weird thing for me, and again, probably because it was a wrestler against Glover Teixeira, but when he fought Blachowicz, 26 of his 36 total kicks landed to the legs. 27 of 53 against Jones to the legs. 2 leg kicks in 3 rounds against Glover Teixeira, and that was it. And we saw the feints with the hips, but we hardly saw any kicks out of Santos, high, low, or anywhere. I would think against a guy like Rakic, who boxes very well, he has a long stance, Rakic does, but he's very heavy on his feet. He moves well, but he is flat-footed, and he's heavy on his lead leg. If it was the Santos of, let's say 2019, he'd probably be chopping away at Rakic's legs, because Rakic, for what it's worth, you'd think is a typical striker. But man, the guy's got a pretty good ground game, and he's a pretty good wrestler.
This is the thing I always talk about when I talk about Aleksandar Rakic, and I will bring this up till the day I die. Aleksandar Rakic is one of the few MMA fighters who uses his athleticism as a skill. It's not something a lot of fighters do, and for baseball you can be really good at, and you don't really have to be that athletic. If you are extremely athletic, though, then you go down as one of the kind of like the all-time greats. Like if you're built like Mike Trout and you're already good at baseball, you're just gonna be that much better. Aleksandar Rakic has the skills, don't get me wrong, but he's one of those fighters who, it's just his drive is up to 100, and I do think that matters. Some guys in MMA don't try their hardest for every minute of every fight, and some guys are happy to take not only minutes off, but sometimes even rounds off. Aleksandar Rakic does not have that issue. He is constantly going to be in your face, and sometimes that will be to his detriment. I do think when he fights a 5-round fight, eventually that will get to him, because he does have such a crazy output that if you are able to defend his takedowns at a certain point, you might be able to expose him on the feet a little bit. But like you had said, Aleksandar Rakic, pretty darn good boxer. He has really good kicks too, really powerful kicker as well, and this is the thing. He's arguably the biggest a light heavyweight can possibly get. Like, Aleksandar Rakic is a massive light heavyweight.
If you see him in the embeddeds, look at the guy's legs. They're huge.
Exactly. And that's something that is really important, because when he fights other wrestlers, and I say other wrestlers because, yes, he is a striker, but he is a wrestling-heavy striker in MMA, especially. If he thinks that the grappling is the best path to victory, he is not afraid to take that. And that's the worst-case scenario for Thiago Santos. Because for Santos, yes, we talk about the kicks, we talk about the extreme power. The lack of kicks in the Glover fight was because he was on his back for the majority of it, and you can't kick off your back when some guy's on top of you, kind of just pummeling you, because when they were on the feet, he'd hurt Glover with a punch, go to the ground with him immediately, and then Glover, in classic Glover Teixeira fashion, get dropped, get into mount, win a fight. Glover, never change. But for Santos, the lack of ACLs in that fight and really just explosiveness off his back is concerning, and that can be settled in two different areas. You can say, hey, Glover Teixeira from top position, one of the better top mount guys in the division, really in the UFC. He's got great ground and pound. We saw that in the Smith fight. He's got amazing submissions. Thiago Santos figured that one out himself. But on the feet, every second you spend with Thiago Santos, he is a problem. He can throw overhand, straight shots, is not afraid to mix up his timing. He can mix up his stance. There's just a lot that Thiago Santos is going to throw at you on the feet. The problem is, you don't really got to get worried about getting knocked out if you can take him down. And we have seen Santos really struggle off of his back. And I hate to say make rookie mistakes, but it is the case. Go back and watch that Eric Spicely fight. Thiago Santos just tries to explode up to his feet with no technique whatsoever.
You're not Derek Lewis.
No, exactly. You're not Derek Lewis. There's only a handful of fighters who can really get away with that just get up style. And Santos, yes, he is an extremely explosive MMA fighter, but he's not good enough technically to just get away with doing that. And I know they're going to say, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I can buy a black belt at Walmart too. And Thiago Santos, again, I'm not going to be that harsh on his jiu-jitsu, but he is one of those fighters who you hear about the black belt in jiu-jitsu, but you never really see it in MMA. And that's
Shogun.
what... Yeah, same thing. Again, Shogun is the same thing. Rakic is one of those fighters who can mix it up very well. And if he is having trouble on the feet, let's say Santos is starting to land on Rakic, he can immediately just shoot a double leg. And I do think it's as easy as just shoot a double leg. Because for Santos, if you get him down, you can hold him down. Yes, he will fight the initial takedown attempt, but similar to a Alexander Gustafsson, he's always the first fighter who comes to my mind. He's got great takedown defense. He has a great first move to get back up to his feet. But after you can kind of neutralize those two weapons, you can hold him down. Santos is very similar that way. He's got a great first attack. He's very physically strong. But if you chain wrestle him at all, he doesn't have the grappling IQ to really keep up with your attack. And for Rakic, it's not as easy as, oh, we'll just back up Thiago Santos, because you are going to be in danger at some point while doing that. But it is, we'll just back up Thiago Santos. If you get us back to the cage, he's not going to have the range to get off his power. He's not going to have the distance to really use his big power kicks. And you're going to force us into an ugly fight against a guy who likes to come out clean. So I really do like Aleksandar Rakic in this.
And I know we're going to talk about this fight time and again, especially in our main event. But you look at Thiago Santos' fight against Jan Blachowicz, and what did he do well? Well, he mixed it up, and he threw a lot of kicks. I talked about them. He threw a lot of kicks.
In that fight, he did a great job with his own footwork. And I do think that's another thing that suffered from his ACLs is we don't see that left to right as much. And it is weird for Santos because he can fight from both stances, but the main power he has is from that left side. And here's the thing. He can definitely knock out with his right leg. I'm not saying he can't, but the majority of what Santos does comes from the left side. And with his kicks, he's the weirdest kicker in MMA. I think that's fair to say because his kicks are somewhat telegraphed. Like, you're not going to have to wonder where his kicks are coming from. He does wind them up, like you had mentioned. He does have that weird hip movement that's very capoeira-esque. But when he throws a kick, he will kind of Cowboy Cerrone, Miles Jury when he was on the ground, really wind it up and throw it into you because he knows if you catch that on the arm, if you catch that on the leg, it doesn't matter what Thiago Santos hits with that leg. It's going to damage you, and that's an important point to bring up.
And I mean, really, Matt, who had the better performance against Jimmy Manuwa? That's the question.
Aleksandar Rakic basically put him into the upside down, but then so did Thiago Santos, so I really don't know.
They were both really good fights. For me, again, it comes down to the fact that Rakic needs a big step up. This is probably the step up, and for Santos, if he gets the win, he has a ton of power. Again, you can always point back to, well, who was the last guy with power that probably shouldn't have won, but did win? It was Derek Lewis when he fought Curtis Blades. So can Thiago Santos beat Rakic? 100%. I'd like to see leg kicks out of him. Like I said, Rakic can be a little flat-footed out there, and you can land on that lead leg. Rakic is a great boxer. He can kick too. He's a good kickboxer. But Thiago Santos definitely has the heavier kicks, the better kicks. I just like to see them. I like that ground game out of Rakic, though, in this.
Last point for me, Thiago Santos, at middleweight at least, very questionable chin. Now, I don't think that's as much of an issue at 205, but again, something I thought of, so I should probably bring it to you guys. He does seem to get hit clean quite a bit, and that does concern me. Even go back to the Jimmy Manuwa fight. Yes, he beat Jimmy Manuwa, But remember that fight. He got tired through a bunch of telegraph techniques, got cracked himself, but was, of course, able to overcome it and knock him out in the second round. He is able to get hit clean, though, and against a guy like Rakic, who is that constant force, and he's always got that pressure coming forwards, I see Rakic probably clipping Santos with a hard shot, getting him down to the mat, and really just dominating him from there.
Matt, if we have a look at the odds in this one, might be a little bit of a surprise. Santos open to plus 185. Underdog, he's now to plus 132. Money coming in on Santos. Rakic open to minus 265. He's now to minus 159 or thereabouts. And if we have a look at the Tapology votes, they're close. 1,459 of them, 62% Rakic. 51% of fans have him to win by decision. The 38% that have Santos, 70% by knockout. I can see that for the fans that have Santos. I have Rakic here.
I like Rakic as well. I think he's going to be a future champ one day. I really do. Like, that's the ceiling I have for Aleksandar Rakic. He's my Cyril Gane at 205, and I'm not afraid to say that right now.
Oh boy. All right, Matt. High praise for Rakic. If he gets knocked out, donkey. All right, we're both going with Aleksandar Rakic, again, representing Austria and Serbia in this one. Really looking forward to another great fight, and overall 3 title fights on this one. You also have Makhachev taking on Dober, so don't miss that. Matt, keep locked in with Fighting Picks, and as we always say, let's get into it.